let's round it up. We are going to be talking about render tonight. It's going to be a fun one, and I'm actually we haven't talked. The three of us have not talked about this project, so it's going to be interesting to see what they think about it and what you guys have to say about it down in the chat. And as always, guys, this is a show that depends on interaction. It's not for the three of us to talk. It's about interacting with you guys. So if you have any comments, if you have any things that you want to add to the project, please put it in the chat. I'll write it down, and at the end of with this trusty piece of paper and pen, and at the end of the show, we will I'll ask the guys and girls on this panel, and we will discuss what you have to say. The other thing I wanted to say was, just a disclaimer, like always, we are in no way, shape, or form here, and I'm sure someone in chat's going to come in late who's never seen our show, and they're going to be like, how much are you guys getting paid to talk about render? We're not paid. In fact, we didn't choose to do render. You guys did. So we spent the last week researching this, and one of the reasons why it's important for us to do this show is to give you guys another point of view of crypto, and it's not the utility aspect of things and the long-term investing thesis and theory behind what we value, and not the old like, hey, let's look at charts, and not to say there's anything wrong with that, but that there is another side of this coin, pun intended. So we wanted to give you guys that, and then also just encourage a way to research, to instill that into you guys, and to show you the points that we cover, and hopefully you guys can just add on to it. So we're not paid in any way, shape, and form, unless Tim's, you're listening, call me. And then and at the end of the show, you'll get to vote on what you want to hear next week. So it's gonna be fun, guys.
All right, let's kick it off. As always, we're not starting with the blockchain. We're not starting with the token. We're starting with the real world problem. Because, of course, if there is no problem, then there's no reason for the project to exist in the first place. And I want you to think about everything digital that you guys see today, right? Movies, video games, AI, generated visual content. All of that has to be created somewhere. But more importantly, all of that has to be processed. And that's what rendering is. Okay, rendering is it's the process of taking raw data and turning that into that visual output. So whenever you see like a Pixar movie or a video game or some sort of like cinematic animation, what you're actually looking at is the result of massive computational work. All of that is happening behind the scenes, but there's a problem with the rendering. Rendering is extremely expensive, and that takes a ton of time to kind of get all of that that power to work. And behind all of that rendering is there's massive high performance GPUs. So how do these companies typically handle the rendering today? Well, many of them are relying on large scale rendering farms, and they're doing this on top of centralized cloud providers. And the biggest issue for a lot of these companies is cost. Those high rendering videos, they require really powerful machines. And that process of creating those videos, it takes a long time. The second downside is the accessibility. If you're an independent small creator or a really small studio, then you're automatically at a disadvantage because you don't have access to those rendering farms or that enterprise level infrastructure as some of the bigger studios out there. But then you can also tie in the inefficiency that comes along with that. There's millions of GPUs out there in the world right now that are not being used. They're kind of just sitting idle, right? These powerful computers, they're not being used all day long. So we have two things that are going on right now. One is that some people need more computing power, and two, some people have unused computing power. So Render steps in, and they're trying to figure out how they can access that massive rendering power without actually owning that infrastructure. And how can they connect it globally, right? How can they connect unused GPU power globally to the people who need to use it right now? it's almost very similar to the like that model of what Uber is doing, right? Uber has millions of cars out there, but they don't actually own the cars, right? So whenever someone needs a car, they're going to that infrastructure to actually take what they need when they need it. It's almost that same similar model, except for this is unused computing power. And another problem that they have right now is that the entire system it's expensive, it's centralized, and it's very inefficient. So Render is coming in and trying to make it cheaper and more accessible by connecting the supply and the demand of computing power globally to those who need to tap into it right now. Do you guys want to add to anything about the real world problems before I get into what this project actually is?
I can say a real world problem I had, which for everyone will give you a real use case.
Yeah.
So for those of you guys who don't know, I used to be a producer, and it was my second production company. We had a client in Molson, a beer product. Turns out that Molson it doesn't have any video footage of like something simple as like beer. No like high resolution render videos at the time. So we wanted to create a project for them, and it was a commercial, obviously, and we wanted to do this. Now there's a problem. One, we couldn't afford. There's a compositing program called Shake. Apple creates it and or makes it. Now, luckily, I had a boy genius on my team, and I hope you're not listening, Apple, but he cracked the program so that we were able to use it. That was for problem number one. Problem number two was that even if we could actually film this, in order to do the compositing programming, and what compositing means is it like this, taking out that background and then creating the image. We needed a significant amount of computing programs. We literally lived in an apartment, more or less, where it was just two flats, and we had, I think, 12 to 15 computers running for literally a week straight in order to do this 30-second ad. The amount of power it took, we didn't pay for it because we were renting, and the amount of actual infrastructure required was ridiculous. And again, it couldn't have been done if I didn't have a boy genius on my team. But that is a real use case of what this project, this blockchain, this network is actually trying to solve. If Render existed back then, we wouldn't even have to do half of the problems that we had to try to solve. So that was a use case for me, and and I definitely think Render is something that it has merit for sure.
That's pretty smart that you you went into the apartment and you didn't have to pay for it.
Well, I mean, like,
15 computers running 24/7 to do this for 30 seconds.
for 5 to 7 days straight.
Wait,
Yeah, I know.
what year was this?
So I was doing that production company in 2003. Yeah, I know. Wild. He now works for Silicon Valley, by the way. The kid, the boy
That's
genius.
kind of sick.
Mhm.
But that's cool that you have an ability to relate to how inefficient, expensive, and how much of a disadvantage the smaller studios are.
Yeah, and not even just the smaller studios, but like real use case in the industry. It's massive. Like the amount of money it costs to render projects is insane.
And so I guess adding to the problem is it's kind of a monopoly, right? Because there's only three big companies that people can use. So yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Ironically, back shout out to Montreal again. Uh, Everyone's favorite Jurassic Park. A lot of that rendering came from Montreal. Yeah.
What do you mean it came from Montreal?
So the actual like compositing programs that designed a big part of what created the dinosaurs was somebody in Montreal like had the company and made a crap ton of money from it, like an obscene amount of money.
Like even that documentary on Netflix about the dinosaurs, like the amount of computational power that had to kind of be involved in a series like that,
What?
it's kind of
People don't understand.
unimaginable.
Yeah, yeah. Like when they like Toy Story and all these like
Avatar.
Avatar, Lion King back in the day, like when it first came, like there is some serious computing going on. I just watched, by the way, Project Hail Mary. Speaking of
Is
compositing
it
and
so
rendering,
good?
that rock,
I
you
gotta
guys
watch
will all
that.
be in love with. You will all think this rock, alien, whatever you want to call him, is the most amazing creature ever. Yeah. Anyways, we're digressing.
Yeah.
Continue.
I wanted to make it look pretty. All right, so let's move forward into what this thing actually is. Render is a network that is allowing people to access computing power without needing to own that hardware themselves. So if you're a creator working on something like a 30-second ad or something, that needs rendering. That means that you don't have to go out and actually buy the expensive machines, and you don't have to rely on centralized providers like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or something like that. Instead, what you can do is you can send that work into the render network and have that processed externally. Now, on the other side of that are the people, the businesses that already have the powerful GPUs or the computing power. And normally those computers are already kind of just sitting around. They're not being used the majority of the time. So what Render is doing is it's allowing the unused computing power to be utilized for people when they need it. Okay, so Render's not a blockchain. It's not a layer 1, it's not a layer 2. What it is, it's a network that operates on top of the blockchains. Originally, it was built on Ethereum, and now it's moving over into Solana. So instead of Render being the infrastructure itself, it's actually using the blockchain infrastructure to support what it's actually doing. And maybe I should be a little bit more clear about the blockchain aspect to it, right? The blockchain is not doing the rendering, okay? The work is actually being done by the GPUs that are for rent out there. The blockchain is only being used to track the work, to coordinate who is completing it and who is handling it, and also it's tracking that exchange between the participants, the user and the renter. Now, Render is operating at the application level, which means that it is focused on a specific use case. Yeah. Yeah. Any additions?
No, I agree. So different things that it was used for: film animation, gaming, AI and machine learning, metaverse, or design for, I should say, 3D content. Um, these are things that it's supposed to be solving, right? Are you there, Fully?
Did you ask me a question? Why is he looking at me like that?
Can I hear you?
Huh?
I don't think he can hear
I couldn't
you.
hear you.
You can't hear me.
Couldn't. No.
You still can't hear me?
Oh, it must be him because I can hear you okay.
Hello?
Okay, we're back.
Did you ask me a question?
I, honestly, you just froze. I didn't know you were talking. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so that's that's my overview for the project. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add into that?
Good job, Bully.
Misty, you want to talk about
Thank
the
you.
team?
Sure.
Thanks, Bull.
So the founder of the team is Jules Urbich. And before he created the Render network, he built something called Octane Render. And so if you've ever watched a big Hollywood VFX film, like an animated movie or a high-end video game, there is a very real chance it was rendered using Octane Render. This is the industry standard. It's GPU render used by major studios. So he's got a pretty good backstory. And then we have Apple. So Apple TV has a show called Severance. It's the opening sequence that falling through the off scene was rendered on the Render Network. Apple is not a press release partner. Apple is a paying customer. The Sphere. So I got more into the, I guess, partners than the team. So the Sphere, NASA. All right, let's see. Beeple. J.J. Abrams is a filmmaker from Star Wars. And the ecosystem side of it is the co-founders of Solana. Well, they spoke at the RenderCon 2025.
So just to step
Render
back a little bit,
Mhm.
J.J. Abrams, yes, you said he's a filmmaker. He's one of the top producers in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like that's not just like somebody who's saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm a filmmaker. Here's my little." Like, this guy's a accomplished filmmaker. Star Trek, Star Wars, Westworld. I'm trying to think what else he's done. Star Trek. These are
Yeah.
these are major studio heads of a major studio. So like, yeah, when we're talking about render as like a rendering potential program, one of the top producers in Hollywood is on this project, or at least is what.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
the
so
really
it,
that's the really cool thing about the background is a lot of the projects that we look at. Some of the team, they're coming from places like banking or finance, but this background is coming from people who understand media production. They understand rendering. They're participating in graphics and output. And these are people who actually understand the problem that they're trying to solve. This is a team that's built specifically for their use case.
yeah,
Agreed.
so Beeple is the digital artist who sold an NFT for $69 million. And then Ahmad, he is the former CEO of a sustainability AI, one of the most important people in AI imaging generation space. And then, yeah, there's some pretty big people on their team for sure.
The other two was Ariel Emanuel. He shaped the global sports and entertainment landscape by leading the merger of his agency with Endeavor, William Morris, and WME. Um, he was part of the team that acquired IMG and the UFC. And then Brendan Ike, who was born, uh, doesn't matter when he was born, but he's the creator of JavaScript,
Yeah.
which
Isn't that amazing? Wow.
yeah,
I
and the
didn't even
modular
have him on my
platform.
list.
It's crazy, like crazy. This is a team, and I think the reason why this team was able to come together was because, and we're going to talk about this, but it's a good time to talk about it now, is because it wasn't a crypto project they were creating. They already had the tech, right? The
Yeah.
tech was the actual thing, and then blockchain was gonna be like, oh, this is a way to actually make this project, this technology even better, a better use case. And
And they also had the partners or the people to sell the product to already lined up beforehand.
100%.
Let me ask you, because I'm just looking at the advisory board for OTOY, which is the company that kind of started it all. And, former CEO of Google's in here. We have former CEO, president of IBM. IBM is mentioned again. How deep, maybe we'll get into this in a little bit, but how deeply tied is IBM into this project? If you have at least two people that we know, vice president, president, CEO, whatever, from IBM kind of coming in and kind of getting a footing for what this project should turn into.
Have you guys ever gone down the rabbit hole of IBM as for fun? Yeah, I don't. Okay, so IBM is worth a look. I think people think it's an archaic business that used to be like the big sluggish. Like no, IBM is a major player in infrastructure in actual real computing, not your desktop, not my laptop, but real data farms. And it doesn't surprise me at all that a major studio or project like this would require that. So it doesn't surprise me in the least.
A lot of these guys on this board look like they've lived through the Great Depression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Misty, what about tokenomics?
All right. So I really like the tokenomics of this. I feel they're very elegant and well designed. So sure, let's get into that. Render is the token that powers the entire marketplace. If you need GPU power to render something, you pay render tokens for it. The tokens get burned, removed from circulation forever. The node operator who provided the GPU power receives newly minted render as their reward. And that's it. That's the whole model. So I like it. Simple, clean, good. It is called the burn mint equilibrium. And the reason it matters is because every time someone uses the network to render or run AI jobs, tokens get burned, more jobs equals more burns. The network is literally self-deflationary when demand is high. So the supply is 80.5% of the maximum supply is already circulating. The fully diluted valuation is one of the tightest in the top 100 tokens. And I did take the time to see what the tightest ones were. Most crypto projects hold back a huge chunk of tokens. They're locked up for the team, investors. Those tokens aren't circulating yet, so those don't show up in the market cap. But when they hit, it can, affect, obviously, the price. So let's see, annual new emissions are only about 5.9 million tokens against the 118 million already in circulation. And that's less than a 1.2% inflation per year, declining on a schedule. Most top 100 tokens are issuing about 5 to 15% new supply annually. So that's pretty good.
So what did you say the circulating supply was?
So the circulating supply is 518.74 million render.
Yep.
And so the max supply is 644.25 million render. And then already circulating is 80.5%. Market cap, the fully diluted valuation is 1.2%, 2.6 billion. Yearly emissions is 5.90 million, and remaining to emit is 125 million over the next 10 years. So, yeah.
Caveman, you like the tokenomics of it?
I like the tokenomics. I don't mind it at all. Partners have 26.6%. The treasury has 23%. Private sale and public is 18%. Inflation is 16.7 for like the emissions. The reserve is only 8.6%. Everything's diluted. Like there's no inflation, right? It's out there.
No, it's deflation.
Correct now, yeah. So like I don't know. What do you think, Bully?
I like it as well. As Weewa was stating, what was it on the BME? I think is a fantastic mechanism model to kind of organize and structure the way that it's going to be outputted. So I think that they really kind of took their time to incentivize the means of a schedule and how the average holder or participant or user in this ecosystem, they kept them in mind.
Yeah, this is one of those tokens that is definitely very connected to the actual use case.
Yeah, no, I agree. Do you want to add anything else?
I think I'm good.
Nice. So we all got a thumbs up on the tokenomics there.
Okay with.
We all got a thumbs up on that one.
Stay tuned though, guys. I think you might want to listen to the rest of the story. Right.
Dun dun
So
dun dun.
it's called a cliffhanger. OTOY. We're gonna start in 2008. Okay. And the reason being is because this project exists today because of Otoy. If you want to call it Otoy, I'm gonna call it Otoy. As we said, Jules Urbach was the founder. Malcolm Taylor was the co-founder and the CTO. It was a graphics and rendering company first. And they spent the next years creating one of the most prolific VFX or virtual effects studios in Hollywood. Then, if you want to skip to 2016, the idea before the token, obviously, what token wasn't created, the idea started to conceptualize. This is when Render was conceived, not as a crypto project, but as a solution to a real world bottleneck Oitoy was already facing. At the time, Oitoy ran into a fundamental limitation. GPU demand was exploding. There was more 3D content, higher quality rendering, and faster turnaround expectations. Centralized infrastructure, it couldn't keep up. Building GPU data centers, guys, is extremely expensive. And scaling it globally, very slow. And on the flip side, idle GPUs existed everywhere. Gaming PCs, workstations, underused data centers. These were potential possibilities like what Blockchain Bully was saying earlier. So the question Jules asked was simple. What if instead of building more data centers, we just connected the GPUs that already existed? And that was the birth of Render's core idea. Turn unused GPU's power into a network. Let anyone contribute compute and get paid for it. And blockchain offered a solution to many problems before there was any. No easy way to coordinating strangers before. Blockchain offered a solution for that. Verify work trustlessly and pay globally without friction. Blockchain solved payments with tokens. They trust with a verification layer and coordination with smart contracts. So the idea evolved into a decentralized GPU marketplace powered by crypto. In 2016, Render was a concept and early architecture. Internal prototypes began, architecture for job descriptions, node participation, verification models, exploration of token incentives and network economics. Just think like whiteboard, it's a prototype stage, but grounded in a real product experience. In 2017, Render token launched on Ethereum as an ERC20 token. They raised $30 million in private and public rounds. This wasn't fundraising, it was an initial economic layer of the network. $30 million was not a lot of money, especially back then. All they wanted to do was provide funding to build the network. So distributed tokens to early users, node operators, and investors. After the funding, Render began developing core network infrastructure, designing job distribution systems, node operator onboarding, and verification mechanisms. They built on top of Otoy's existing tech stack, which Bully talked about earlier, Octane Render, a production-grade rendering engine. It wasn't a full-scale launch in 2017. It was an internal testing. They wanted to have a controlled environment trial period with early experimentation. They wanted to distribute in rendering jobs and see if the token-based payment system would work. Now, one of the hardest problems they tackled is how do you trust a random GPU to do your work correctly? That was the hardest question they had to solve. So in 2017, they focused heavily on early proof render concepts and job validation systems and anti-fraud mechanisms. This became the foundation for later verification models and payment release logic. Think of it as an important juxtaposition. Render was in 2017, which was a highly speculative, filled with projects that never actually shipped. The important distinction for Render was it raised during a speculative cycle, but was backed by a real infrastructure with Otoy. At the end of 2017, Render announced an official partnership with SIA to bring their decentralized storage platform to the Render network. SIA's partnerships brought 70,000 file contracts and 300 terabytes of data onto the platform across 6 continents. In 2018, when Render moved from theory something that actually worked. So what happened? Well, there was a private beta on the Render network that launched. It was limited access to a select group of artists and to a select trusted node operators. They tested the job submissions, the GPU node participation, the token-based payments, but it was all very tight and all inside. This is the proof, though, that the marketplace could actually function. And they worked on detecting bad or incomplete renders, and they ensured that the output had the quality that they needed. And they wanted to prevent malicious nodes. This matters because all of the hardest problem in decentralized computing was starting to be solved back then. Now, was it perfect? Hell no. Limitations became extremely clear. 2018 exposed real-world friction. File transfer speeds. I don't know if you guys have actually tried to load big files, but when you're talking about rendering files and how big they are, it was obvious that they just didn't have the infrastructure for it. So large 3D scenes for rendering, not great. Network latency was a big problem. Hardware inconsistency across nodes, job failure rates, scaling node participation, and maintaining quality control were all problems that they needed to address. The idea may have worked, but not yet for scale and at efficiency. Therefore, there were no large-scale open networks yet. There's no mainstream adoption, and it was still a controlled rollout. This was the first year, though, that Render proved that the core concept did work, but it also discovered how hard it was to scale that. But you know the saying, what a difference a year can make? Well, in 2019, Render moved from the private experiment into a live accessible network. They began onboarding creators, node operators. It wasn't just a test environment anymore. There was real-world marketplace activity that began. For the first time, supply and demand started interacting in the wild. Creators could submit real jobs, they could get paid using Render tokens, and node operators completed jobs and earned Render. Moving from a beta to a live network meant more variability, node quality, hardware performance, output consistency, and improvements focused on job validation accuracy, reducing bad outputs, and strengthening reputation systems. This is where theoretical trust models met real-world chaos. The token Render was transitioning to utility, starting in a speculative ICO token and becoming a functional payment layer. They did also introduce in 2019 the MTP, which is the multi-tier pricing, which allowed users to select the tier of power they wanted their job to be processed based on parameters like speed, system specs, and security. The pricing of each tier was stable but periodically adjusted for changes on GPU performance. GPU cloud rendering, cost, and decentralized supply and demand data were all things that made it different tiers. And to be honest, there was still limited usage volume and token activity. It didn't scale yet. Why? Well, for reasons we already talked about. Real world limitations were still clear. File transfers were still bottlenecked. Large scene handling was difficult, and latency across global nodes were a problem. I will say that in 2019, Render was still operating under the radar. Despite going live, no major mainstream adoption yet. Limited awareness outside 3D artists and the crypto community. In 2019, it was the first year Render became operational in the real world, though. 2020, it was about the strengthening of the core. What does that mean? Well, through more stringent verification and trust layer procedures. One of the hardest problems was trust, and it continued to evolve. There was better validation of rendered outputs, reduced risk of bad actors, or just incorrect results. Improvements included more refined reputation systems, better job verification logic, and tighter quality control. Basically, they hardened the network against fraud and inconsistency. Render focused on making the system stable, trustworthy, and usable, laying the groundwork for future growth. 2021 2021 saw the explosion of NFTs, 3D digital art, virtual environments, creator economy tools. What did that mean for render? Well, all of these, like Bully was saying earlier, require rendering, and rendering requires GPUs. So the impact, which increased awareness of GPU bottlenecks, more creators needed computing, more relevance of decentralized rendering, and people started pouring in to invest into the narrative, not the tech, which is why a lot of people are jaded on this project. Network usages and activity increased on the render network, however. More job flows flowing through the network and increased participation from artists, designers, and 3D creators. It was an important nuance, however. Growth was real, but still early relative to global demand. In 2021, the bull market gave render both the attention and the liquidity. Render price and volume increased, but we need to separate the signal from the noise. Yes, there was more visibility, but not all price movement was tied to usage. The narratives that Render was positioned was like a metaverse infrastructure, a 3D content backbone, decentralized GPU clouds, and we started to ramp up in price. In 2021, the narrative momentum had outpaced the actual network usage. It was not a takeaway from Render, though. In fact, they continued growing in their infrastructure. Behind the scenes, they were better job routing, improved rendering reliability, more efficient node coordination, ongoing refinement of trust and verification. They continued to build. In 2022, though, it was a market reset. Crypto entered a deep bear market. NFT volume collapsed. Speculative capital dried up. Impact on Render, hype-driven demand was all but gone, and the lower token activity. Essentially, 2022 removed the noise, and we started seeing what was real. With hype gone, focus shifted to core utility, less narrative, more function. Real rendering workloads, core product improvements, and stability over expansion. Major token and economic model evolution also started to begin. This is one of the most important developments in 2022. Recognition that early token model needed refinement, work began toward better alignment between usage, rewards, and token value. This setup later, which what Crypto View was talking about, came the burn and mint equilibrium model, which gave more sustainable economics. Render continued the dependence on Otoy ecosystem, and it's still anchored in Octane Render and the existing creator base. The key takeaway from 2022 was adoption was still tied to Otoy, and it wasn't yet fully independent. In 2023, it's where this thesis finally meets the market. GPU demand exploded. AI starts to take off, and Render becomes directly relevant, not just conceptually, but actually structurally. Explosion of generative AI, model training, GPU intensive workloads. GPUs go from nice to have to critical for global resource. For Render, suddenly demand is real, scarcity is real, pricing power becomes real. Then came the shift, and it happens and this shift, I don't know if you guys have been watching our show for long, but a lot of the projects, we see a shift. And in 2023, this is when the shift for Render happens. What happened was they wanted to reposition toward an AI plus general compute. Render Network expands the narrative and strategy from rendering and NFTs to AI workloads, high performance compute, and general GPU marketplace. Essentially, they widen the total addressable market significantly. In addition, a critical upgrade in Render token. They implemented the burn and mint equilibrium model. Users pay for compute, tokens are burned. Node operators get paid, tokens are minted. So that's happened. The result was the supply becomes tied to actual usage. And this matters because it reduces uncontrolled inflation, aligns the token value with network demand, and it was moving toward a sustainable economic model. If that wasn't enough, they also migrated from Ethereum to the Solana ecosystem. Why? Lower fees, faster transactions, better scalability for high frequency usage. As a result, Render becomes the better performing token in 2023. It gains visibility among AI narratives and infrastructure plays. Network growth and participation also increased in both node operators and GPU supply. Continued onboarding of creators, developers, and we're moving beyond the niche token project. Behind the scenes, better job routing, improved node coordination, continued work on latency, reliability, and efficiency, with more robust validation and better node reputation systems. Render was successfully positioning itself as a decentralized alternative to cloud GPU providers, now comparing to the likes of Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud. In 2023, the Render Foundation was also spun out. They wanted to oversee the governance of the protocol, manage ecosystems growth and partnerships, guide tokenomics and upgrades, and separate the network from direct control from OTOI. A move toward decentralization and a formal governance structure was created with a long-term ecosystem plan. In 2024, Render didn't reinvent itself. It refined itself. The token model became active, the network improved, and the infrastructure moved towards scalability. The BME model, it began the real usage in 2024. What actually changed? Token supply dynamics started linking towards network activity. Render transitions closer to the usage-driven asset, and more activity and infrastructure built on Solana Rails. So therefore, the focus was on lower fees, faster settlement. Why does this matter? Well, guys, you can't run a high-frequency compute marketplace on a slow, expensive rail. And by the end of 2024, Render had seen a major AI partnership expansion. What did it see in 2024? Well, including Stability AI plus Endeavor, the integration of Stability AI models directly to Render workflows, joint initiative between Stability AI, Oitoi, Endeavor, and Render Network, which enabled AI modeling training and generative workflow on Render, which also bridged the 3D content and AI models. They also had a partnership with compute infrastructure partners on the AI DePIN side in Prime Intellect and Exabits. They focused on AI infrastructure, decentralized computing, and this is where Render is plugging into the broader decentralized AI computing stack. It expands beyond artists into AI developers and compute-heavy workflows. They also got a partnership with creative and media ecosystem expansions in Roddenberry Archive, which is the Apple Vision ecosystem. Render used to power immersive 3D recreations in the Star Trek environments, which built spatial computing and XR. Render is being used in next-gen media experiences, not just static rendering. And my favorite, because it's near and dear to me, they partnered with MSG Sphere. If you guys have been to Vegas, you know the Sphere very well. Even if you haven't, you probably know it well anyways. Render used to produce large-scale immersive content at the Las Vegas Sphere. This demonstrated real-world high-end rendering usage, massive 16K wraparound LED screen inside, fully programmable LED exterior called the Exosphere, and advanced spatial audio and 4D effects. Everything you see on the Sphere is ultra-high resolution, 360 degrees immersive environments, and real-time pre-rendered content that requires massive GPU rendering and high-end virtual effects pipelines. This is where Render was most, I guess the most like, what's the word I want to use? It's probably the biggest thing they've done that everyone knows.
So you wait, hold on, brother. You're telling me that the Sphere in Vegas is connected to this project?
Absolutely 100%.
that's sick.
It gets sicker because I actually think that render is I think render's ultimate play, this is probably at the end of the show, will probably be more of the next generation of marketing. I think this is where they're headed as a real use case. But we'll get there in a second. The Sphere is part of the broader trend. Immersive media, spatial computing, AI-generated environments, all of these require GPU, faster rendering, scalable compute. They also partner with a tooling and ecosystem integration called Blender, which is a major milestone because the integration of Blender cycles into the render network. Simplified job submission via render network wizard. And why does this matter? Because Blender has millions of users. That is a distribution play. They also partner with Maxon Cinema 4D, a direct workflow integration with easier submissions of jobs into render, lower friction, more potential usage. And Dropbox storage integration. First third-party storage providers supported. It moves render closer to professional studio workflows. From AI's tool ecosystem integration was a platform level move. From Render's own platform stack, tools like Runway, Luma Labs, and Black Forest Labs. These are AI content generation tools, meaning Render is embedding itself into the AI creation stack, not just announcing partnerships. In 2025, market positioning solidified for Render. Render was now widely seen as a decentralized GPU cloud, an AI infrastructure play, and GPU scarcity exposure. They then launched Dispersed. It's an AI compute subnet, specifically a governance proposal of RNP 019 passed in April of 2025, which enabled a new AI-focused subnet called Dispersed. What is Dispersed? Well, it's a separate GPU network for AI workloads and general compute built on top of Render's existing model. Why does this matter? Because Render is expanding beyond rendering into full AI infrastructure. It continued deep partnerships with Oitoy, however. What actually happened in 2025, Oitoy launched Oitoy Studio, which is their beta project, and it's planned to run 600 plus AI models on Render's Dispersed subnet. Wonder what they're gonna do with those AI models.
That's insane.
Yeah. Oitoy is still the primary anchor partner of Render Network and is now expanding into AI using Render infrastructure. Expansion into the DePIN ecosystem, indirect partnerships. Render leaned into DePIN, a collaboration visibility with other DePIN projects like Helium ecosystem. They're positioning as part of a broader decentralized compute stack, not a standalone project or product. Industry and ecosystem positionings. There was the Solana breakpoint in 2025. Render was headline sponsor. It announced Dispersed, which is their subnet, and the AI compute direction. They're positioning in front of builders, not just investors. In 2025, the launch of its AI compute subnet and deeper integration with Oitoy signals a shift toward real workloads, but larger scale commercial adoption is still the next step. In 2026, major software upgrade. So in January, they introduced differential uploads for Blender. Instead of uploading full files every time, now you only upload the change parts, or projects that are uploaded are the change that they change. Why does this matter? Lower bandwidth usage. Is that me?
I don't know. No, sorry.
Okay. The focus was AI rendering, decentralized compute. Attendees were artists, studios, AI builders, and infrastructure players. What this signals is they're trying to position Render as a serious industry layer, not just a crypto project. Render is improving the product, expanding its compute capabilities, positioning itself with AI infrastructure, but the key metric still remains adoption. Is the tech getting better? Yes, absolutely.
AI market. Can you guys hear me?
Hmm.
Okay. Just in terms of what AI, the amount of computing that AI is going to demand. I mean, the demand is there in terms of the tapping into GPUs and rendering. But I think the big if to it as well is how long can they maintain that adoption and that integration to come into our ecosystem? It seems like they're doing a pretty good job of it so far.
What do you think, Reba?
I think I agree. Yeah, I think they're positioning to do very well. Definitely
As,
one of my favorite projects. So
as you were going through the the timeline and integrations, I was diving into my computer to see how much unused GPU I have to see if I actually might set something up later.
You know,
Yeah, I might. I might. I have a behemoth.
my problem with that is not all computers are created equally. Do you know what I mean? So that must be a major problem with them. Yeah, I have a computer I don't use here. Will I really make any money? Like it barely can handle Word,
I wonder, like, what the offset would be for like the electricity.
and there's that problem too.
You know, like if this thing is running all day and all night, and it's drawing a lot of GPU power,
Mhm.
then what the hell do my bills look like? Am I getting
Versus
enough
running
render?
Word.
I mean, what are we doing? I'm jumping in at $1.70, and when it goes to 10, I got to sell it to pay off my year worth of electricity bills. There,
I'm curious. Anyone in chat? Has anyone in chat been a node for render or know anybody? I'd love to know. For me, the idea of being able to use hmm, JB says my electricity bills when mining was ridiculous. The idea to use uh, data centers to its full capability using projects like Render is absolutely crucial, I think. I don't, I think I see a real use case for this that goes beyond what they're currently doing. So for me, I'm on the use case of what Render is, like the utility, I'm very bullish.
and um, we would maybe you could answer this. And I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead, but competitors? Is anyone doing this kind of in the same decentralized manner?
yeah, so Akash Network, the ticker is AKT. It's a decentralized cloud compute. Render's kind of got the edge on it though, because Render has the Hollywood hookups, I guess you could say. And then you have AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, which I think we knew those were kind of the three big ones. And then IO.net is a GPU network similar to DPEN model. And then Filecoin is kind of the same use case, but actually they could complement each other pretty good. So yeah, they've got a few, but
On
go ahead.
on the AI side,
Oh, I don't know the AI side. I guess I didn't dive
BitTensor,
into the AI side. Yeah.
BitTensor, right, is the biggest
Is it
competitor.
Bitsensor? Yeah.
Why would that be?
Well, as an AI project, right?
Hmm.
The only thing with that, and when I did look it up, was it's significant. Like the bit sensor. How do you guys pronounce it?
I say Bitsensor, but that's probably wrong. No,
How do you pronounce it? Bully?
I don't know.
Okay.
he
So
doesn't. He
that
tries
pro
not to.
that project, uh, I looked at Q1 2026 earnings, compared it, and I compared it to our project, this project, Render. Uh, 40 million plus for Bitensor Q1 2026 versus 1 million, a little over 1 million for for render, which I thought was it showed it was telling.
You're looking at the profits of the company.
Not profits, well, money generated in Q1.
Oh, for the ecosystem in general.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
I
that's
wish I
that's
could.
big.
It's a big difference. Yeah, 100%. Which I wanted to see. I wanted to give a real comparison in crypto projects that could show where it's at. So is what it is. Now regarding I'm interested what you think about this, Bully and Weibo. We normally talk about like regulation and compliance.
Not
But
very. This one is actually when I do my weighted score. This one, that's what dropped my score the most is the compliance and regulations.
because it's really just a program.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we will. Was this is this your part? Are you covering
Do
compliance?
you want me to do compliance and regulation?
Well, yeah,
It's really
I'd like
not.
to. I'd like to hear your deep dive analyst on where this project actually fits in for that.
Yeah. So render is a utility token. It's burned. I'm sorry, when rendering jobs complete, minted as a node reward, not an investment contract. So it's kind of tricky. So under the March 2026 SEC CTFC joint taxonomy, render will most likely fit into a digital commodity. There's no SEC enforcement action ever against referenced in SEC 485A filing in 2025 without classification. There's no MiCA. So Solana SPL token it inherently inherits Solana's regulatory positioning. Polygon render depreciated in 2025. Let's see, shows the team prioritizing holder safety. So one of the key risks that I thought was, well, this falls into this category, is that if the SEC classifies AI compute node rewards as a security, enter the DePIN sector faces the headwinds from that. So that's kind of, we'll have to see where that goes. And then I guess the biggest compliance advantage, render does not operate as a financial service. So it's not an exchange. It's like you said, a program. So yeah, it's kind of nothing really.
Well, I think that's probably the biggest benefit in terms of compliance and regulations because it's not trying to operate in payments or finance. So I think that there's a little bit more easement as to what they can get away with. But if it is operating more like a cloud computing service, then it's kind of better to compare it to something similar to the rules and regulations that Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, those type of companies who are providing that computing power. It's a little bit more applicable to that type of service rather than your banks or your other financial institutions. So they have a little bit easement there.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you guys. Because because Render doesn't actually own the infrastructure, would that tax reporting or that income classification for the person who's renting it out be something kind of similar to people, like would they classify them as independent contractors the same way that they do for Uber or DoorDash?
That's
What would be your
interesting.
thoughts on that? Does that also depend on jurisdiction?
I would think yes.
You actually just blew my mind for a second. I don't even think you understand why. But I wanna pose you a different question. I want to pose a question back to you. I always wondered why they called them foundations. Foundations have tax incentives, right? So if it's a non, I mean, I guess my question to you is, is there a tax implication, or is there, or have these projects been constructed in a way that would mitigate tax implications, or at least lessen them because of their grants, because of their building out of an ecosystem, because that they are not actually generating an income? That's a really good question, and I don't know that answer, but I want to throw it back to you on that one.
I don't think I know that answer either. I would have to assume that they're going to treat them as independent contractors, and I don't know. That's very interesting. I have to assume that it's going to be different based on like local rules of how they're going to treat that. I don't know.
That's a slippery slope. We'll put a pin in that one, as they say. But yeah, it is because I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're talking about, you know, an AI version of Microsoft Word or whatever program you want to input, which is under the in everyday life, this would be a normal business that would be subject to the laws and regulations and tax implications like a normal business corporation. If you have a foundation, I don't know if that's the same. We're gonna have to do some research on that. Why do they institute foundations? I'm interested.
That might be a really cool follow-up video.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. Stay tuned. Who's next? What you got?
Bully's next.
I think we're ready to jump into the total addressable market.
I'm interested what you're gonna say about this.
I mean, it's big. It's not as big as some of the other things that we talk about, but scale is really important, right? How big is the opportunity for the team, and how unique is the market that they're actually going after, right? So we know that they're going after computing power. So there's a couple different industries that they're kind of tapping into. First is your traditional rendering industry, and that's going to include like your movies, your animations, visual effects. That alone is already a multi-billion-dollar industry, but that's just the starting point for that. Now you can add on top of that the gaming industry, right? The gaming industry is $200 billion, I think. I want to say is the number, $200 billion. All of the gaming is going to require rendering and GPU power. We can go a step further, which is probably the biggest industry that they're going for, which is the AI. And that's where I think that the scaling aspect to it and the success of that reoccurring demand is probably going to be the most consistent, because the AI models, they already require massive computing power. And those GPUs for the AI generation, not even just the visual aspects for it, but just AI in general, they're already under intensive workloads. So there is continuous processing that kind of belongs to the whole AI that we're seeing right now. And I think the AI is probably one of the biggest markets that's growing faster almost than any other sector out there right now. So we're not just talking about the rendering aspect about it. We're also tapping into that computing demand across multiple industries. So I guess when you combine everything together, you're looking at a market that reaches into the hundreds of billions of dollars and potentially into the trillions of dollars with the long-term perspective of it. But I think it's important to understand that Render is not trying to jump all in on that. I think that they just have to capture a portion of that demand for the compute. And that compute, as of right now, it's pretty consistent. You know, that demand is stemming from people actually using it. So the TIM is pretty big. It's not the trillions of dollars like your traditional finance, the other TIMs that we've tapped into, but the demand is real. It already exists, and that demand is going to be reoccurring.
So I would just say one thing. It was something I mentioned earlier about the marketing. In 2025, not in 2030, not in 2050, today, the global advertising for TAM, so total addressable market for global advertising, in 2025, 2026 is $1 trillion today. So yes, Bully is 100% spot on. the the TAM right now for everything that it's going after, as it stands right now, he's right. 1.08 to 1.17 trillion is the TAM. However, when you look at advertising, and I'm not saying they're going after all of it. If they go after just AI driven advertising, it is $1 trillion.
When you say advertising, you're specifically focusing on digital advertising, like not billboard,
And
like
so I
painted billboards and stuff, right?
so I would say that advertising has completely changed. I think having come from that world, I think the days of your traditional marketplaces, that's done. So I think the new with technology and AI, I think that is we're in for a whole different actual targeted experience, which we are right now to a degree. Right now, we're talking about this. You're gonna go on your phone tomorrow, and all of a sudden you're gonna have AI videos and AI like, hey, would you like this new chip for your computer? This is what you're gonna be experiencing tomorrow because of this show or Tim Hortons. See, guys, it works.
Can I jump into the token mechanics and the value capture for it?
Let's do it.
All right. I think that this is, for me, probably when I look at a project, I think this weighs maybe one of the most because we actually are investing in the actual token. And up until this point, everything about the project can make sense, right? The problem could be massive. The solution for it makes sense. The team could be great. The market could be huge, but none of that matters if the token does not capture the value because we're investing in the actual token. So I think I've done this the past few times. Like we and it's really applicable for this as well. We have to separate the system to the token, right? And most people tend to combine these things together. And they're not the same thing, okay? Because like we've said before, the system can succeed while the token does absolutely nothing. So the question of the night is, if this system is used more, is the token required? That's the entire question for value capture for this aspect of the live. And in order to answer that, I have to break down how RNDR actually works inside of the system. So when someone needs rendering to be done, they have to pay for that work, and that payment is going to be made using the RNDR token. And on the other side, if you have these people who are providing the GPU power, they're also getting paid in RNDR. So in this system, the token is directly tied to the service. If you want work done, then you need to acquire the token. And if you're going to provide the work or rent out your computer process, then you're going to you're going to get paid in that token. So that usage for the RNDR token, it's forced. There is forced usage for it. And there is direct demand that is tied to the real world activity in this ecosystem. Now, I would probably ask you guys, can this system actually function without the RNDR token? And the answer for that is no. And this model really starts to stand out because you're not relying on incentives. You're not relying on optional usage. You're actually relying on real demand for compute that does require the token. So if more people use the network, then more RNDR is required. Structurally, I think that this is a very strong value capture model because it's actually using the system, and that usage of the system is going to directly create demand for the token. I like the model.
You just said that it required a token
It requires the RNDR token.
for the nodes, right? To be paid?
Vice
You're saying?
versa. So if you look on here, if I can even zoom in, if you are going to run the node, you're going to be paid for it, and if you want to utilize that service, you're going to pay for it in the RNDR token. It ends up being on both sides of the application here.
Okay, so render token. I mean, okay, we're splitting hairs, but render token's not native to this project, right? So technically speaking, they could use any token they wanted to, in theory. they
I
could
don't know
use
about
US.
that. I don't know. You might be throwing me a curveball here. I don't know. Can you explain that thought process to me?
I mean, nowhere did I ever see that it was native to this project. Um, it was the reason that Render Network exists is they really just wanted a blockchain. They wanted to use blockchain to be able initially to only render projects. Now, in order to do that, people need to get paid. So they came up with this tokenomics idea, to make sure that people get paid in according to the service rendered. But I don't think it was, and I could be wrong, but I don't think it was actually one doesn't equal the other. It's just being used. It's agreed upon by the foundation, and it's
I'm going to disagree with you there. I'm going to say
really.
that it is. I think it's the only means of value for this ecosystem. If you want to provide the service or you want to buy the service, you're going to require the token.
Oh, I know. I 100% agree in its current setup. I'm just saying that it's not necessary. Like, for example, Chainlink, and not to compare networks, but like Chainlink the token and Chainlink the actual project, those aren't native either. Like they could say, see ya Chainlink, we're gonna use render. No, they're not going to, but you know what I mean. Am I wrong? We will.
Not
I
sure.
mean,
I'm
I'm
not sure.
yeah. I guess I can't type on my computer right now for some reason, but I know, right? Like what the heck? It's just been one of those years. But I think that I'm not positive on that, so I guess I need to like dive into that a little bit more. From what I can see, I haven't seen anything that says what you're saying, but that does not mean you're not right.
I'm not. Listen, I should. This is where we need to look into it.
It's a
Don't
great
take my
question. Yeah, definitely.
Are you
started off
saying
as
because it is built on top of the existing blockchain?
so they started off in Ethereum, right, as an ERC token,
Yeah.
and they moved it to Solana. We just said that Render itself is not a network.
Yes. Yes. So we have to pay attention to what the RNDR token is actually being utilized, and the blockchain is not responsible for the computing or the rental of the GPUs. So when you want to utilize the actual services of it, the RNDR token is required. The blockchain is kind of there to just validate, ensure that these transactions are being recorded. That they're kind of using it as the proof of the actual interaction between different intermediaries and different parties. But when you're looking at what the actual project is doing, anytime that there is computational power that needs to be tapped into or any form of rendering, it is going to require the RNDR token. It's not like you can pay. It's not like you could if I have my computer running for your business overnight. It's not like you could send Ethereum to me or Solana over to me. That's not how
Exactly
that.
right.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, Render powers the entire ecosystem. Like you need Render
As
for
it
the
stands right
whole
now,
marketplace.
agreed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, if you need the work to be done, you need the token.
right.
Whether it is your renting or your offering, you know what I'm saying? If you're the renter or you're the rent, I don't even know. If you need work to be done, the system can't
Just
function
just
with
buy it.
the system can't function without the RNDR token.
I get it. I understand. Sorry, I want a little debate there, guys. Um, okay, which brings us to
Galaxy, very nice.
which brings us to the good, the
Wow.
bad, the ugly.
Yeah, hit us with it because
We will.
you got
Go ahead,
something
you
up your
first.
sleeve here.
Oh, he wants to
I'll
go
do it first.
last. All right, so you want me to do pros, cons?
No.
So strengths, I said genuine enterprise customers, Apple, NASA, Sphere, that's pretty incredible. Proven founder, so Julius is not, a newbie at any of this. The favorable supply 80.5% is circulating. The burn mint equilibrium. The tame expansion from rendering to AI interface. Our RNP-023 Salad Network ads. So that's 60,000 new customers for the GPU. RenderCon live analysts. I have it down as this week. So actually it was 2 days ago, right? 3 days ago. And then 80% of the ATH. It's significant discount if thesis plays out. So then the risks, I have AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure have more capital and better SLA and enterprise locked in. AI narrative, if it cools, that's not a good thing. And then the price is down 86% of its all-time high. Is that right? Is negative
Oh,
80%.
yeah,
Sorry.
it's down a lot. If you guys are chasing charts and looking at charts, there's a lot of upside on this project
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, so it was what, $13 at its all-time high or something like that, and it's at like 177 today. Somewhere, don't quote me. It's something like that.
I think $19. Am I wrong? I did look it up.
Yeah.
No, you're right. 14 bucks.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, that's what I have for that.
Fully?
The good, bad, and ugly. I think that the demand is out there. There is a real need for compute, especially with this whole AI revolution coming in. I really like the value capture model to it. I also like that they're tapping into multiple industries, right? You have AI, gaming, rendering. The bad to it is as well as much as I like the supply and demand dynamics to it. It all depends on actual usage of the network. So this is one of those projects that you really have to pay attention to the adoption, the integrations, because if they're not moving into the right direction, then that is going to affect the token. As we said, competitors, you have AWS and Google Cloud, but maybe what separates them is that this is actually decentralized. So maybe that's kind of favorable to their clientele. And you know what? I feel like, and I wonder if you have an oversupply of people that are trying to offer their unused GPU to the amount of people that need to use it, how does that actually affect the token, right? Does there have to be a balance between the GPU supply and the actual user demand? Like if you look at, I'm just going to say Uber, for example, if you have too many cars and there's not enough people looking for cars, then that's somehow going to affect, you know what I'm saying? So does there have to be a balance between the supply of the GPU out there versus the actual users and vice versa? Maybe that could be a con. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't even know how you would track that.
I just want to write this down because I want to talk about this after. Decentralized. Do you have any other good, bad, or ugly?
No.
Okay, so guys, we're gonna try a new section of the good, bad, ugly. My version of it. I'd like to know what you guys think at the end of this because I want to, the show is called Utility Unlocked. Part of our mission is to start to get you guys to start thinking, different ways of thinking, or at least, encourage a conversation. So when I'm evaluating crypto, it's not based on market cap. Everyone's knows that. Rather, a few verifiable evaluation models. The three models are Metcalfe's law, MVT ratio is another one, and the third model is token velocity. For Metcalfe's, when you apply it to network, so it's network value versus the users. Applying to render, What counts as users here are creators submitting jobs and node operators providing GPUs. The reality is the node count is growing. The creator demand, it's not exploding like what Bully just said. Active job volume, still relatively limited publicly. What's the interpretation? Well, the network is supply heavy, which is what Bully was just talking about, but demand light, which obviously is not great. That breaks the Metcalfe's acceleration effect. More GPUs does not equal exponential value. You need more transactions between users. The verdict, underscaled network relative to valuation. Network not dense enough yet. Interactions, jobs, they're not compounding. The next one I want to talk about is NVT ratio. NVT ratio, for those of you guys who don't know, is network value divided by transactions, or market cap divided by transaction value. When we apply it to render, what we know is market cap equals billions at the peak cycles. On-chain plus economic activity, not proportionally visible at the same scale. See, the problem is render's activity is partially off-chain, right? The render jobs are not fully transparent like in DeFi. That makes NVT harder, but trend is still visible. Interpretation is the valuation appears ahead of measurable transactions throughput. What's the verdict? Well, elevated NVT usage is lagging in price. The third model is token velocity. Velocity equals how often a token is used versus held. What we want to see when looking at velocity is high velocity, which equals real economic activity. Low velocity, speculation and holding. Render's reality there is some usage. There's render's jobs happening, obviously, but also there's significant holding and speculation. Exchange trading volume is much greater than the actual network usage at this point. The verdict? Render is not yet a highly velocity utility token. It's moderate and low velocity relative to the narrative. Final answer, Render is currently priced more on narrative than on measurable usage. It's not a fake narrative, guys, but it's a forward-looking narrative. As far as my final rating, I'll go first. I gave it a 6.2. The reason I gave it a 6.2 has nothing to do with the technology. It has nothing to do where I think where it's headed. There are many things that I love about this project. The partnerships, the adoption and usage are things that I didn't value, or I didn't give it a high number. I need to see, for me personally, I'm gonna keep my eye on this project for sure, but I want to see the adoption and the usage, which is my lowest number I've ever given to a project. Well, except for Voldemort. So this for me is something that needs to change. You guys?
Go ahead, Bully.
I'm going to give it a 7. I absolutely love the path of integrations and adoptions that they're going on. The use case is really strong. I think the regulatory and compliance path that they've chosen is kind of going to lead them into a much easier gateway. The one thing that I would probably like to see a little bit more is, how do I say this? I guess awareness of it. I think that because of the incoming demand for what AI is coming out, I think that there's no reason that everyone doesn't absolutely know about this project and understand the amount of computing power. I think that maybe people are still maybe a little bit sleepy in terms of what AI is really going to be kind of demanding and dependent upon, not only just in the electrical grid system, but in terms of the overall infrastructure. And I think that there is a lane for them to really kind of stick their nose out there and make their solution known and make this problem known even better. And I think that I don't know how many of you guys have heard about this project before, but if they haven't caught your thought process on this project because there is such a real problem out there, then I think that's a little bit of a failure on their marketing aspect to it. But I'm going to give it a 7.
Yeah, so I am at a 7.7 for this project. I think I've already made it clear that I am invested in this one, and I do see it doing good things in the future. There's a lot of things that I like about this project. I think the lowest score that I gave it was actually, so the uncertainty part of it is great for me, and I think that they're going to integrate, and I think its adoption is coming, but that's with all of our utility projects, right? Like adoption and utility is like we're not sure. That's the our one I'm unsure about, I guess, and regulation too, but we can kind of feel regulation out even better than the adoption part of it. So the compliance and regulatory side of this is where I gave it a 6. And that's just because the DPIN sector is so uncertain. I feel like, we don't really know where that whole sector is going to go, and that can throw some wrenches in. But overall, yeah, that's my score, and I'm going to stick to DCAing in.
Yeah. It's interesting, eh? I love that. I love that the three of us give like really. I think it's a good microcosm of the real world. I before this research, I knew about render as far as like people talking about it in passing, but I never did anything behind it. When I started seeing that it was getting into like Hollywood and like literally my background, I was like, oh,
This is
okay.
fun,
I'm kind of like eyes open. Let's see what you got.
yeah. I love it.
And but like yeah, this one for me is keep your eyes on the prize. Like, because I don't, where you know how some projects we've probably already researched, we research it and then we've probably forgot about it and we're never going to look back at it. This isn't one of those for me. This is like,
Yeah.
I want to keep watching to see where this is headed. I'm concerned, like for me going against like AWS and Google Cloud, it's a not, I don't think it's a non, I think it's a non-starter personally. I don't think you're going to compete with those behemoths, but that doesn't mean there isn't a place for a decentralized. I go decentralized because it's like, I don't know how decentralized in the nodes maybe, but like the actual token itself is still heavily centralized.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Bully, you touched on this, right? Part of the problem with those three giant monopolies is the price for the average everyday Joe who wants to do some of this stuff. And that's kind of where Render steps in and is like, hey, so I don't know if they'll replace them, but definitely compete for this little guy, right?
This company gets bought out, guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find an image because there was a guy on Render who maybe it was in here who had uploaded a GPU farm, and this is I was actually looking into applying into. I'll get into that in a minute. Maybe I could find it. Maybe I can't. But yeah, it's very expensive for the average person to run GPUs for for small studios. They have a disadvantage for that. The thing with Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud is it's all centralized infrastructure and cloud computing, which could be good, but it's also kind of really dependent on the infrastructure maintaining uptime. And when we pay attention to kind of what's going on in the Middle East, like the AWS servers absolutely got wrecked. So there was a lot of complaints for the dependency on centralized cloud computing because they are limited to specific areas. Like there is a facility for it. So I mean, there's risks that come along with it. I think the decentralization, maybe the awareness or education or demand for that may not be there right now, but I think it's inevitable that it's going to come.
Okay, so guys, a couple comments from the viewers. First one was, I don't think decentralized favors institutional clients. They want control. How do you feel about that statement? Or do you want to address that statement?
I don't know if I would say they want control, but they want, is control the right word? Clarity, like maybe control is the right word. I do agree with that. I 100% agree with that. And so, yeah, I agree with that.
I would say
Maybe not
accountability.
necessarily. Yeah,
Accountability, right? So if something
that's
goes wrong, someone's got to sit in front of a board, pick up the phone. Someone's got to be held responsible for if something goes wrong. So there is at least a means of accountability. If it's decentralized, who's taking that one?
right. So I do very much, and so touching on that a little bit further, that's why I feel like Ripple and a lot of these companies that are integrating in the financial sector, they're not going to be as decentralized as people think. They're going to be a little bit more regulated, because that's what banks and institutions want. So I agree with that statement. What about you, Caveman?
I think when I think of the word institutional, I automatically go to like big business and governments. And I think in that case, that statement is incorrect. But if you're talking about institution like massive, like there's a massive marketing campaigns, big studios, big business, then yeah, they're going to want to make sure they have total control and absolute um, there it can't get leaked. We can't have any problems. You can't have any outages. It has to be absolutely tight.
Flawless. And that's the other part of that though, Caveman, right? So like if it is absolutely flawless and it runs exactly like it's supposed to and it's truly decentralized and there's never a hiccup ever, then I think it's reverse. I think institutions would want to deal with that, right? And because then they have this thing running in the background that they don't even have to think about. They're just like, okay, it's there, it's running it. We're good. We can just, you know what I'm saying? So, but like Bully said, there's no accountability. So if there is a hiccup or if there is something, who do you hold, who's going to be held accountable? So I can
Well,
see both sides of that, I
the
guess.
network.
Yeah.
Not Jimmy in his mom's basement putting in some sort of malware into the no, it's the network.
Yeah.
100%. Last another one, 50% of current data centers are going to be delayed 5 to 7 years. I mean, this in theory, this project is going to be that's a solution, right? Like we don't necessarily need those big data centers.
And I'll give you another one. Internet Computer Protocol, also kind of focusing on the same exact thing, centralized cloud computing. So that statistic also applies to that tech stack as well. But yeah, I think it's inevitable. I mean, everything is ultimately kind of moving into that cloud-based software as a service, and there's way too many benefits for these clients to kind of ignore it. Now that awareness may not essentially be there right now, but I think maybe by 2030, that's going to be inevitable. It'll almost become more of like a standard than a mandatory requirement. It'll be more of like a standard.
I'm typing in something. I want to see what they're gonna say.
I can't type, so.
Who are you? You've had bad luck. I was wondering, think about something that most of the free world has. Almost everybody, no matter how old you are. A cell phone, right? I wonder how many cell phones are in the world and how much computing power is possible. Even if it's just even if it's just a fraction, is there an ability there to make money for everybody with just a fraction of your use case or of the phone's use case?
I don't think so.
Too much too much.
I don't think it's not enough. I would say you probably need like eight gigabytes of VRAM for that type of computing. I mean, there are requirements for it, and I was actually kind of looking into it before. I think after this live or sometime this week, I'm actually going to fill out one of those render network operating investment interest forms. I think I'm going to apply.
I'm dying to hear how that goes. Please.
I'm actually gonna look into it. I definitely have a setup for it, but I don't think I don't think that a phone is enough for that. And you also need to have, like, unless your phone stays home, I'm pretty sure you need to have strong internet. I don't think that can run off a cellular. But maybe at some point they could tap it. Who knows, man? Maybe.
There's 6 billion phones in the world.
Imagine if they could, though. You know, like, imagine if they could.
I feel like there was a Filipino project that did that. A Philippine project? You know what I mean? Where they were getting paid over there. Uh, I feel like you're right though. Computing power, the AI processing, it doesn't look like it's good. Yeah, so you need 35 tops to 45 tops, and smartphones have 5 to 10. So
I'm gonna look into it, and if I do apply to become an operator, I will absolutely keep you updated for it. I think I have a setup for that. So
I'll use my office as one if it goes well for you.
imagine that.
I don't pay them. No, I'm kidding. I do. Imagine. Um, I mean, so we have a question for you. How long have you been invested in Render for? If you don't mind me asking.
Geez, I don't remember. I don't remember when I started investing in a render. I would say within the last year, maybe. So, yeah,
Okay.
I would say around there. Again, though, it was one of those things I pick from each sector, and I liked that one a little bit better than the other ones. So,
You're in Betanza, right?
a little bit and sore. I say it wrong. The Chad is going to have to help us out on that one. Yeah.
Solom says he's been in since.
I do think that one's going to do very well as well. I think we're going to have a lot of winners in this space, but maybe that'll be the next one we break down.
AI is massive.
Yeah.
AI is massive. When you go to these, like some of us are going to Consensus, wait till you see how much of the stage, how much of the hours of stage, so like people doing whatever it is they do up there, they're talking about, a lot of it is about AI and where we're
Yeah.
headed. A lot of it, like most of it.